everyone, my name is Lady Erin and welcome to my world. Today we have the honor of interviewing the lovely Skylar Chadwick, Master of Horror. Hello, Skylar, and thank you for joining us.
Hello, Aaron. Thank you for having me.
Now, as someone who has reviewed all four of your books, I have to say that your subjects are abstract, terrifying, and very unique. Can you give us kind of an idea of how you come up with these ideas?
Oh, golly, how long do you have? Um, Honestly, my first book, The Rabbitry, was started as a joke. Um,
Really?
yeah, I used to own a rabbitry, believe it or not. And my ex-wife had a bad habit of naming the rabbits, which is a horribly bad idea. If you're going to raise something to be butchered or be sold,
Mm-hmm.
just don't name them. It's horrible. And I was teasing her, what are you going to do if you name one of these rabbits after somebody and I go butcher it and then that person dies? And she's like, shut up, don't even talk about that. And this idea started kicking around in my head. And the next thing you know, I've got this. It started off as a short story, but the more I got into it, the longer it got, and it turned out pretty good.
And
But that's kind of how most of I just kind of stumble into them eventually. I don't really sit around and think about what can I write next. It's just I get a thought and go with it.
I hear that's how most of the great ones do it. They just wing it and see what happens.
Yeah. It's the most fun way to do it. I've tried plotting things out, thinking about things and plotting them out, and I'm a hopeless pantser. I cannot plot. I just can't. So I get a thought in my head, and I start getting these little characters running around in my head, talking to me, and I just start writing stuff down, and it turns out pretty cool.
It must work for you because you've got four very successful books out. And I was wondering, do you have anything new that you're working on that you could tell us about?
Um, yeah, I'm working on one, tentatively calling it Skitters, but I'm not real crazy about the title. Um, it's based on the idea that you ever see things out of the corner of your eye,
Mm-hmm.
but you look and you can't find it anywhere, and you think, did I really see that or not?
Mm-hmm.
Like this little skittery things. I kind of got that idea stuck in my head one day, and then I got to thinking, what if all these little skittery things are connected to one creature or one being, and they control them all? Maybe they're like they're little scouts or whatever, and maybe they can attack people with them, or maybe they can manipulate people with them. And so I've been kicking that idea around. I don't have it all plotted out yet, um, but that's what I'm working on right now.
I love that idea, and I would love to see what you come up with that. Just because you do have that flair for the abstract and
Okay, whacked is what most people call it, but
well, something else that I've noticed is that you do have a lot of Christian undertone in your horror novels. Like all of your stories seem to have that kind of Christiany message. And I was wondering, is Frank Peretti perhaps an inspiration of yours?
actually, I never heard of Frank Peretti until after I started going to church. And I've been writing actually for, ooh, probably 15 years now.
Okay.
But I've actually I do like Peretti's work. I really do. And to be honest, The Rabbitry and Tommy both were written before I started going to church, and I went back and cleaned them up a lot. But I noticed that there were a lot of Christian undertones in them.
Okay.
So when I went to clean them up, I started trying to bring that back out. Um, and then Rain is probably the most Christian themed one that I have because it's all based on forgiveness or the idea of forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I really try to put a lot into that one.
Okay. So, when exactly did you discover that you wanted to be a writer? You said you've done it for some years now.
I wrote some stuff when I was in high school, junior high and high school, and some of the stuff made the school paper and blah blah blah. But I've always wanted to write. I used to sneak around. I'm gonna tell on myself. I didn't care if it was a roll. I used a roll of my dad's. You know what plaster tape is, or drywall tape.
Hmm.
It's this roll of paper that's perforated, and they use it to seal the seams in the drywall
Okay.
with mud. Well, I didn't know what it was. I was just a kid, but I found it in the attic, and I wrote a story on it. And of course, my dad got all upset because I read his roll of tape. But it seems like I honestly don't know at what point I wanted to become a writer, but I've always had ideas, and I've always just jotted stuff down. I didn't take it seriously till about 10 years ago.
Okay. And you know what they say, if you're a writer, any surface will do.
Yeah, even the ones that get you in trouble.
Oh yeah, I've been known to use napkins on occasion.
Yeah, I used to play in a country band. I used to rewrite songs every now and then, kind of like who's that guy, Weird Al Yankovic.
Oh yeah.
What's the guy that does all the country ones or the Christian ones? Oh, I can't think of his name. Anyway, um, I used to play in a little band a few years ago, and I was kind of famous for rewriting the words to song, rewriting the lyrics on cocktail napkins in between sets. So
Okay.
you're right. Anything you can grab a hold of.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So why the horror genre out of all the genres you could have picked?
Because I've been fascinated with horror my whole life. When I was a little kid, my very favorite movie of all time, and I know it looks really hokey now, but when I was a kid, it was really spooky. It was the Creature of the Black Lagoon, and they
Oh,
ended up making like three movies out of that. Excuse me, but my mom liked the old black and white vampire, and the Dracula, Frankenstein, the Mummy, all those guys. And when I was a kid, she would watch those during the day, but she didn't want me to watch them. And I would actually sneak into the living room. She thought I was in there taking a nap, but I would sneak into the living room and crawl up underneath her chair. Furniture back in the '60s had taller legs and stuff on it, and I would sneak under the chair and watch until something spooked me, and then I got caught.
oh, yep.
But I love those old movies. I love the old classic monsters. The werewolf and all those guys. And it just kind of, some of my favorite stories when I was a kid were stories that my grandma Chadwick called from Haints. She was an old country woman. Took me forever to figure out what she was talking about, but she used to tell me scary stories all the time when I was a kid, and I just loved it.
So your grandma's responsible for this.
Yeah, mom and grandma.
Mom and grandma. So as an author, what is the hardest part of the process for you? You said it was plotting that you had trouble with. Is there any other areas
Yeah,
that?
I don't. I just don't even plot. I'm working on a project. I signed up for some classes. You know who Ted Decker is?
Yes.
Okay, Ted Decker offered some classes for writers, and I got in on the first wave of them. Um,
Nice.
and of course, they wanted you to plot, and they wanted you to do this and do that. And I'm halfway through that right now. I'm working skitters through that.
Okay.
And plotting's a nightmare for me. The other problem I have is rewrites. I hate rewrites. I hate rewrites with a passion. I will do them because I know they're necessary. I know I need to. But when you get something in your head, especially if you're a pantser like me, and if you go back to rewrite, you can get off track and really mess things up. And then you have to go back to the original and start all over again. So rewrites and plotting, I hate them.
Rewrites and plotting. Do you have any advice for future authors who maybe want to break into the horror genre?
Read as much as possible. I love Stephen King. Obviously, he's my favorite as far as horror goes. But if you're going to do like I did and try to bring horror over into the Christian side of things, then go for Frank Peretti, Ted Decker, some of those guys. But read as much as possible and try to watch horror movies that don't get into detail. I don't like gore slasher movies. I just don't like those things. They give too much detail, and to me, they just get boring after a while. Give me something that makes me kick my imagination in, and then my imagination will just run wild with it. So if you're really wanting to get into the horror side of things, that's the best thing to me. The best thing you can do is watch a lot of horror that makes you think, and read as much as possible.
Very, very sound advice. Now, in closing, because honestly, that's all the questions that I had, is there anything that you would like your readers to know?
Oh gosh.
It's the question of the century.
I'm I'm not gonna flip out on you. Let me tell you why I said that.
Okay.
I've always wanted to do this, and if I can ever find a way to get a hold of Stephen King, I swear I am going to do this. Um, I've always thought it would be really cool to write a book about the day that Stephen King snaps.
Oh,
And maybe his mind just goes back and he becomes a little bit of each one of his characters, and how much fun could you have with that? And
oh
I
my
get to
gosh.
thinking sometimes, do people worry about that with me? Because I've had people tell me, you're a little warped, and sometimes I don't know how to take you. So I promise you, no matter what I write or no matter how far off out in the left field it gets, I'm not going to snap on you. So don't be afraid to come up and say hi at Walmart. It's okay.
That's really good to know, I'm sure. Oh, well, that is all the questions that I have prepared for you. And thank you again so much for joining us and letting us interview you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you very much for having me.
I will post links to all of his books, including my reviews, to the description below. And you guys, you should go out and check him out because his books, they're wonderful.
Thank you.
So, thank you all for watching, and we will see you next time.